Welcome to 2025 and the Second Sunday Garden Forums presented by Project Green and the Iowa City Public Library. It is great to see everyone out today. I hope your holidays were great. I hope you had a great new year. My name is Linda Schreiber. We hope our garden forums provide you with great gardening tips and inspire you for the season to come. Please take a moment and silence your cell phones.
Could you maybe turn up the sound?
Not loud enough?
Oh, much better. No, that's
Okay, I'll lean in.
Linda, we'll turn it up. You don't lean towards
Oh, they'll turn it up for me. Project Green Garden Forums are free and open to the public, and attendance provides our audience with continuing education credit hours. Our thanks go to Beth Fisher and Bon Drager and the Iowa City Public Library staff for their technical assistance to our presenters today. Today's program is live streamed on the Iowa City Public Library's YouTube channel, and it can be viewed there at any time. Project Green was formed in 1968. Our nonprofit organization has devoted resources and countless volunteer hours to beautifying green spaces and educating the public about the environment and conservation practices. Our volunteers are going to start something new this year called Winter Sow. I've done this. It's great fun, and you're invited to help. They're going to grow perennial and annual seeds in milk jugs at Project Green Gardens, 820 Park Road. No experience is necessary. Anyone who is interested is invited to join them on Thursday, February 6th at 9:30 a.m. on the lower level of the Ashton House. Volunteers are asked to enter from the garage, and all supplies will be provided. There's a sign-up sheet in the back of the room, and Sue Mullins is here. There she is. Wave to us, Sue. Project Green will again offer Open Gardens Weekend 2025 on Saturday and Sunday, June 28th and 29th. This is a little earlier this year. Please consider offering your garden or nominating gardens that our guests can visit. The annual activity features a variety, and they welcome visitors at no charge. This is thanks to the generosity of the homeowners and our business sponsors, and we are pleased to announce our first business sponsor for 2025, Sustainable Landscape Solutions, so please support them. Beginning the first Monday in May and most Mondays through mid-October, our volunteers help plant and maintain Project Green Gardens at 820 Park Road. Volunteers help out from 9 to 11. It's a great opportunity to network with fellow gardeners and exchange information and tips and have the satisfaction of helping our community. There's a sign-up sheet in the back of the room, and Diane Allen is helping coordinate those activities. Please watch for details on our website and social media. Project Green relies on financial contributions to enable us to continue our work, and we greatly appreciate your support. Donations can be made in 3 ways: at our website, projectgreen.org, at the Community Foundation of Johnson County, at our endowment fund, or via the City of Iowa City Green Fund. Today we're going to follow the format of previous forums. Our speaker will present for 45 minutes to an hour. We'll take a break. Our in-house guests are invited to enjoy a beverage in the back of the room. And we ask our in-house audience members to write out your questions during the break at the clipboard here at the front table. We do this because the program is live streamed and our online viewing audience won't be able to hear the questions without a microphone. When we reconvene, our speaker will respond to your questions. Now let's get started. I'm pleased to begin our 2025 Garden Forums with a Master Gardener colleague, John Weeg, who will present Hügelkultur, Water and Roots, Why Bury Old Wood. John is a transplanted Iowan who has focused on soil, the foundation of gardening. Hügelkultur is a German word that means mound or hill culture. This growing method has been used for centuries. The process mimics what happens in nature. Trees fall, leaves fall, seeds get covered, winter and rains germinate the seeds. The process is building raised, self-contained, and self-composting garden beds from layered organic material and compost, and then covering the pile with soil where plants will grow. When he's not in the garden, John is a database administrator at ACT, a for-profit organization that offers programs, services, and research focused on education and workplace success. Now, on with the program. Please welcome John.
Thanks, Linda. Like she said, John Weeg, Master Gardener. I joined the Master Gardeners just a few years ago, sort of mid-COVID. My training was all online for Master Gardeners. I joined because I wanted to learn. For several years I didn't join because I thought I didn't know enough, but I sort of realized that the point of it was to learn, not to already know everything. There has been a lot of Master Gardeners, and several of them are in here, who have been teaching me for these years. I like that the Master Gardeners offer large and small projects. You know, we do some pretty physically heavy projects if you want to, and we do a lot of little simple projects if you want to. So it's a nice mix for me. Why are we here? We are here because it's getting dry. You know, last year wasn't so bad. The year before was terrible. So you just can't count on regular rainfall anymore. And if you're like me, you hate to water. And you always think, man, I should get that outside meter so that I'm not paying the sewer fee on what I'm watering, but I never do. We have drier summers. When it rains, we have harder rains. So one thing we want to do is we want to slow down that water from running off. We don't want it to rain really hard and just run down to Ralston Creek. You know, so we want it to stay in our yard. We also would like to do nutrients in the soil. I am a big fan of not adding fertilizer. We don't add fertilizer in any of the gardens that we work. And I'll keep pointing over here because these are people that I work with a lot. So that's why I'm pointing over here. And then soil amendment. A lot of us sitting in here have city yards. And a city yard, everyone knows, they skinned the topsoil. And then after they were done building, they put back an inch of topsoil, and the rest is the layer B. You know, it's the clay. There's a lot of solutions to this. So Hügelkultur is just one of the solutions. I like it because it's free. For the drier summer, you can water. And we've done this out in the demo garden out at the fairgrounds. You know, we'll water every day. So it is very dry, and we'll water every day. Well, you sort of hate to do that. Now there it's well water, so it's free, but you still sort of hate to have to water every day. The harder rains, we can mulch. You know, let the mulch hold it or keep it from washing away the little topsoil we have. We can fertilize if we have to. And we can compost. You know, we can dig in compost. I am becoming more and more a no-till gardener. The more I read and the more I do, I see the reasons to not till, or to till once, to start that bed, and then don't come back to the tiller. Why Hügelkultur? First of all, because of the cool umlaut over the U. Yeah, it makes you feel like Motley Crue or something, you know. But beyond that, it maximizes the available water. So it's going to hold the wood underneath, and we will come to the pictures and we'll talk through the construction of it, but the mound itself holds water because of the voids, because of the material. It's free, and I'm going to stress that many times. It's my favorite price. There's no maintenance once it's in place. You know, when I wrote this, I said low or no maintenance. I can't find any maintenance that has to be done once it's there. It'll last for years. Now, let me do a little aside here. So the wood that we're going to bury will last 20 to 40 years. This wood is spruce from 80 feet down. And if anyone can tell me exactly, but I'm told that's 5,000 to 130,000 years old once you go 80 feet down. So we know wood can last, this was in clay and very anaerobic. So we know wood can last in the soil. We actually don't want that. We don't want it to last forever. The interesting thing on that is once it was dug up, it's now starting to degrade because it's up in the air. But this was from, my brother was the geologist opening the new cell out at the landfill. So you get to see what is 80 feet down. We didn't dig a hole 80 feet. Organic. So we're putting large organic into the soil here. And just adding organic, adding compost, adding manure, it's all good. And we amend the soil, of course, while installing. Okay, the Hügelkultur hill, and you're going to see there are, if you Google Hügelkultur, and you don't have to do the umlaut, it'll catch it, you're going to see 1,000 different sites. And they're all saying about the same thing. It's just a layering method, sort of similar to that lasagna composting, but it's just a layering method. And you'll see the original ones were built up. So the tree fell, stuff was laid on top of the tree, dirt was laid on top of that, seeds blew in on top of that, just like Linda said. It was up. And you'll see a lot of these talking about hugel berms that are 8 feet tall. So you can go up. We didn't go up with any of ours because we don't have the extra soil to bring in. You need truckloads of soil if you're going to do that. So we went down. So we supplied our own dirt. So we would dig down and then fill it in. So it really just starts with old wood. So this is the rotting firewood that everyone has in their backyard. That's the perfect thing. You want it to just start to crumble a little. So you're going to put in old wood, you're going to put in manure, you're going to put in branches, anything green, the tomato vines, the canna stalks, anything, compost, and then topsoil. It does sequester carbon. Now, I don't know enough chemistry and to say, yes, it sequesters this much carbon, and you can tell, you can weigh things, you can measure what's coming off, but just from reading and just from logic, you're taking this carbon, the wood, and you're putting it underground. So if nothing else, it becomes a slower release. So once it degrades, it will eventually mix back in the air, but you've slowed that cycle down by 40 years, which is a good thing. A lot of times people, and I've looked at this too, I'm putting logs in at the bottom. Let me use this cool thing. Oh, look at that. I'm putting logs in at the bottom. Can I put in wood chips? Someone just ground up a tree. Can I put in those wood chips? The answer is yes. But you're going to need more green. So that's your brown. You're going to need more green. So you can do wood chips, but that's more surface area of the brown. So you're going to need more surface area of the green. So for me, I just use, there's always someone with rotting firewood. So I just keep using, I don't think that we'll ever run out of rotting firewood. So just keep using the rotting firewood as your first layer. I'm going to talk through where we've done this. And the first one was the biggest one we've done as far as effort. So, and you'll see several people in that picture. This one was a team. I want to show that this can be done big, this can be done small. So this first one was big. Now our problem out at the Johnson County Fairgrounds was it's built on farmland, but when they put in the buildings, they dug out that clay and laid it over the farmland, and then they laid topsoil on top of that. So what we had in the demo garden was he had topsoil, clay, and then the original farmland. So we dug down 2.5 deep. That's deeper than we go on any of the other ones. We wanted to get through that clay pan so that we weren't just making a bathtub. So we dug down through. This was a lot of work. This was a large effort, a lot of people involved, several over there. When we were done, you can see how tall it is in relation to everyone. It was 3 feet tall, which was actually bigger than I thought it was going to be. You take all that material out and you add everything else in, and it's 3 feet tall. Large crew, that was a 4 or 5 hour effort. So it was a big one. When we did that, that was our first one done just from reading. I hadn't found anyone who actually had done it before. What didn't work? So the first thing that didn't work was I thought I'd be very clever and put plexiglass on one end. And what I wanted to see was I wanted to see the roots and the worms and everything, sort of like an ant farm. I wanted to see it up against there. Well, they don't go there. It's sunlight. So what you have is muddy plexiglass. And we still have the muddy plexiglass in place in case you want to see muddy plexiglass. The other thing that, it's a mound and it's got slopes on it. So our problem was I put the seeds in and watered away. And the first one we just washed all off. Yeah. So you sort of have to think, oh, I'm planting coffee beans on a hillside. Think what you're doing, and you have to water it real carefully that first year. And I also thought, it's Hügelkultur, I don't need to water this. Well, until the roots are about a month growth, you do. So if it's not raining, you're gonna have to water it to get those roots down to where they can start using what's down there. The other thing that I should have done more of, we should have mixed in, there was so much clay, we should have mixed in some gypsum or sand or ash, anything with that clay. We did mix in compost, we should have done more. And you just see the telltale there that, oh yeah, my soil's cracking. And that says to me, it's not loose enough. This was on the edge of the mound, so it wasn't where it was watered. This is actually where the mound lapped over onto the undug dirt. If we look at the comparison though, so when we did that one, we also did comparison beds. So we said, okay, we're going to grow the same thing on the mound as we do in the ground, and we did actually 3 beds. So we did the mound, we did a bed on the ground that was tilled with the same amendments, and then a bed on the ground that was just tilled. And we planted the same thing across all 3. The bed that was just tilled and the bed that was tilled with the amendments, they were both watered every other day. The mound was watered 4 times that summer. Is that right? I think so. 4 or 5 times that summer. If we compare, we can see, and I didn't include the bed with no amendment because it was obviously worse. So you can see that they're both, oops, they're both as lush. We actually have more blossoms on the left. It wanted to start flowering again. So the Hügelkultur wanted to flower again. The other thing that we were looking at, because I'm a novice at this, I wanted to see, one risk is that the nitrogen in the ground will get bound up so that your plant can't use it. So did I have my proportion of brown to green, wood to manure, did I have that okay? We didn't see any yellowing, so I think we had it okay. This is just a simple comparison. Horseradish, and I didn't put any text because who wants to talk about horseradish? The one on the left was 2 years old from the ground, from the clayey ground. The one on the right was that season from the Hügelkultur. Now, you'll see the thickness is about the same, but you'll also see that in the Hügelkultur it's split out more, which you really don't want with your horseradish. You want it to be a thick, you want it to be a parsnip. You want it to be that thick. So I would say it grew wonderfully in the Hügelkultur, but not so usefully. So Hügelkultur isn't the right answer for everything. Yeah, it's going to really grow and the leaves are great, but the horseradish, there's not a lot of usable horseradish there. If we look, I like roots. So roots and soil, you're going to see a lot of pictures of roots. So if we look at the comparison, this is the bed that was tilled with the amendments. And you can see, oh, okay, there's roots laterally in the top 9 inches. Makes sense, that clay bed is about 9 inches down. In the Hügelkultur, we have much higher volume of roots. And they went all the way down, and note, boy, I keep hitting the wrong button. Note that void right there. So this is also because I didn't put in gypsum or something to break up the clay enough. When the bed settled underneath, there was enough structure to the upper dome that it stayed up. So what we saw was the roots came down, and there are a lot of roots, really good root volume. They came to the void and went around. So they didn't go down straight, and I had sort of thought, oh, they're going to go down into that wood, but not really, they went around. And I'm sure it's the void. If we look at that Hügelkultur this year, one thing that we see is we just see a lot more. There was beans planted here, and this is after they're gone. So there's still just a lot more root mass in that. And I'm not sure why there would be more root mass in this than in the one that was tilled on the ground with the amendments. But there's probably 10 times more root mass. So whatever the reason for that is, and it has to be nutrients and water, there's more root mass on it afterwards. 2 years on, we have more root mass. The other thing, and this is, you guys have all seen this in your garden, and you turn it over and you think, I got to get a picture of that, and you don't think you're taking a picture until it's already gone. This is actually the fungal hyphae. So we want that mycorrhizal fungus, which is going to take, so fungus breaks down the wood, bacteria breaks down the green. We want the fungus to be breaking down that wood. The mycorrhizal fungus actually works with your plant, and it will transmit the nutrients over feet. It can be long. So you'll see spider webs of this if you've not tilled. So don't till for a couple years, and then look, and you'll see spider webs of this. So that's fungus, that's fungus, that's fungus. There are books out there with much better pictures of this, but this is from ours. And like I said, I've turned it over and I think, man, that's a great picture, and I don't have my phone with me to take a picture. And then when I'm looking for it, this is all I can find. The second site is in my own garden. So that was a big project, 2.5 feet deep, digging for hours, 14, 15 people digging for hours. This is in my own little garden. It's 9 feet long, 1.5 feet deep. 1.5 feet is my sweet spot, 2 shovels down. That's sort of the easiest to work with, is 2 shovels down. And most roots are in that top 2 feet anyway, so this is where you want to be. This is a water from below. And so what I did here is my garden slopes forward a little. So I put the wood in, and then I cut a piece of PVC and just stuck it there at the uphill end. Just stuck it in. It doesn't connect to anything. It's just stuck sitting on the wood. Then I put everything else in. I then watered. When I watered that year, I just filled up that pipe so that the water then would flow underneath. So I didn't water the ground once the seeds were germinated. I just filled up the pipe and let the water trickle down. Now, my garden happens to slope. Could you do this on a flat one? Yes, you could, but I would do more pipes. So this is just 9 feet long, and it lets the water flow through underneath. If we look at this one, this water from below ended up being the best of these three, these two. You'll see the thicker roots. So it had the same root mass as the big Hügelkultur, but it had much thicker laterals, and they ran out feet. So it was sort of, this was everything that a tomato root could be, we got from this. Our third one is ecumenical towers. So just over there, you guys can all go see it. This is actually a big success. This one was fun and hard, which is what you want from a project. You want to sort of have little battle scars after each project. And I'll talk about that on this one. This, I had been thinking Hügelkultur, and all the examples that I read were Hügelkultur as a row. And here we did a plateau. So we did 150 square feet plateau and just dug the whole thing up. We had a lot of material, and this is sort of interesting when you start dumping manure downtown. A lot of people notice. I don't know why. We had loads of wood and cana stalks and manure. This is compost, there's manure. So we had piles. So that week before, we started accumulating piles, and it was sort of a watch this space. We had a lot of interest of what are we doing. This was a crew of 14. It took 5 hours to dig. It's a lot. One problem with the plateau, with the row, you take your shovel, you put it to the side. You take your shovel, you put it to the side. With a plateau, you take your shovel, you go walk, 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 and you put it to the side. Because you can't throw it with 14 people, and you're not going to throw it for 5 hours. So it just was a longer dig, but this crew really knocked it out of the park. Us old people out there digging and digging and digging, it's pretty fun to see. The interesting thing, too, is when you have 14 people digging up a yard downtown, a lot of people stop and talk. That's it done. So all that material went in. Now, what we built, it was in a little depression. So that's why it doesn't look like it's that high. But all that material went in, and we just let it sit. The residents there said, we want a raised bed at the end of that, on the patio end of that they would plant. We want a wheelchair accessible raised bed that they would plant. So we actually had one of the board members there volunteered to pay for the material and actually built a lot of it, built most of it. So he volunteered to work with us too, and we started doing it. So where you start with this is start with a plan, because you're not going to just wing it. You want to say, what material do I need, whatever. It's a construction project. I just went online, and I would recommend that because there's a lot of force. Remember, a yard of dirt is not quite a ton. It's about 1,600 pounds, but how many yards of dirt are you putting in that? So how much weight is there? So you have to think that I have to build this structurally sound, or it's just going to squish out. We want it to last years. We don't want to have to fix it. We want it to last until the next generation's fixing it. So I got plans online, wheelchair accessible. We create it, we fill it, they plan it. With this one, what we did was we broke it into 2 days, and the first day we brought in the material and set the posts so that it would be easy to build. Safety I mentioned here. This is the only project that I've been on where we had to get stitches. So, dang. And that slows down a project. You can't just say, get out of the way. You're in my way here. Stop bleeding on the material. Safety is important, and one thing we try to do with each project is before we start, there is some simple safety things. A lot of us have dug for a long time, a lot of years. Have you dug in a crowd? How do you handle a shovel in a crowd? So there's just some things that you don't think of that we do talk about at the beginning of each of these projects. Here it was the galvanized steel. You don't take your gloves off. Always have your gloves on when you're working with galvanized steel. That's it done. Now those rocks are from 80 feet down. And the cool thing is, we got a lot of them, and you'll see more pictures, and you can go over and see them. They have the striations from being pushed. So we actually, yeah, we're gardeners there, but we actually spend a lot of time talking about these rocks. How did they get here? Where's this from? Well, it's from Canada. But it was sort of neat to see these, and how big a rock can you lift? That's the whole problem. How big a rock do you want to lift? The box then, and this is an example of the wood that we're putting in. So this is just wood from rotten fireplace wood. So we just filled up the bottom third with wood. The box would have been a lot of soil if we just filled it with soil. And it would actually really compact to where it would become unworkable after some time. So we filled the bottom third with wood, and then we did manure. Now, a lot of these slides, you'll see that they're in the universal measure of 1 load. 1 load is what my little truck does. So It's about 1,000 pounds. So I can do about 1,000 pounds, about a cubic yard. So whenever I say a load, that's what it is. So we did a load of manure. This is what it looked like this fall. So it is really growing now. The one thing we're doing is we're slowly building in the flowers in there. What flowers do we like? What flowers do we not like? We're aiming for natives in here. The other thing that you'll see is this is actually our pond. And the pond is an upside down garbage can lid filled with pea gravel. Isn't that how ponds are always made? That or a saucer sled. This is filled, and it's actually flushed from the condensation that comes off the building. So this, and we didn't want to just lead it over and let it drip, drip, drip into the pond because we didn't want it to be mosquito heaven. So what we do is we have the condensation off the building fills a 5-gallon bucket, and then it flushes it out, because that then flushes everything out of the pond. 5 gallons is much more than it needs. The other thing that it's doing is that's overflowing, and on a hot, humid day, it'll be 5 to 10 times a day that it fills and flushes, so at least 5 times a day. So we have a lot of water stored in this Hügelkultur bed, because it then goes down, and all this stuff, where it was a hot, dry bed, it's now moist and lush. This is facing south, so it was always hot. The fourth is plant between. And this is something I tried just to sort of say, well, is it the Hügelkultur? Is it the nearness? Is it, why is this helping? So what I did, and again, this is in my garden, I dug in these mounds, so not the whites, the browns, that's the Hügelkultur bed. So I just went down 1.5 feet, 2 feet wide, 9 feet long, put in my wood, put in my manure, and closed it. But for these, I planted between them to see, does that give enough just being next to the bed? And it did. It actually gave good yield. But one thing that's sort of interesting, guess which side the Hügelkultur was for each of these peppers? They went toward the bed. They went toward the water. Now, I actually think that's great. That proves that that's making a difference. So even though this was dug in the middle there, the roots wanted to go toward those Hügelkultur beds. So these are actually next to each other, and they each went toward the other. You can take these home. You probably have them at home already. So of the 4, the water below was the best performer, but actually all of them have been good performers. So there's not a bad way. The first big one, that was a lot of work. I'd sort of say, think before you do that one. But we needed to get through that clay. But the other ones, and I think the ecumenical towers one actually might have the most impact, but part of that is the water source. When we do this, what are we trying to not have happen? And this is where my science is weak, so anyone bear with me. So the fungus breaks down the brown. The bacteria breaks down what the fungus gave, and I forget if it's nitrate and then nitrite. I forget the path, but bear with me. So it breaks it down, and then the plant can use what the bacteria gives when it dies. The problem is that if we have the fungus doing its work and the bacteria doing its work, this product then that's ready for the plant, because of the charge, and that's the only thing I remember, if the plant doesn't take it up, the rainwater will wash it out, or can wash it out. So you want to be aware of, you might be losing nitrogen if you're not planting. Well, the answer is plant. Put a plant in there. That's an easy answer, then you know. I don't know of any way to measure, I don't know of any way for us citizens to measure this. Of course you could measure it in a lab. The other thing that we didn't want, and we don't see any example of, so I think we were good, is this immobilization where The fungus takes it up, and there's not enough bacteria to break down what the fungus is doing, so it's really fixed in that intermediate stage, and there's nothing to take it. And so we are nitrogen deficient in our plant, but the fungus is working as hard as it can. We didn't see any example of that. This proportion of brown to green is something that I have been playing with and reading on, and I think that, you know, in your compost, some places say 1:1, some places say 1:30, brown to green. Most of them have more brown than green in your compost. So I think in the soil, that's what I aim to do, but what are we actually comparing? Are we comparing weight? Are we comparing surface volume? Are we comparing, you know, so what are we comparing when we say 1:2? And for me, and again, you guys tell me where I'm wrong, I'm thinking surface volume because that's what the fungus can work on. The fungus actually isn't in the wood working on it, it's on the wood working on it. So when you think surface volume, I've been trying to do of the wood, you know, my brown, I do twice as much wood or 3 times as much wood as I have manure and green. So I think, and that has been working. So that proportion is the thing that I couldn't get any site that I read before we did the first one. I couldn't give me an answer. I wanted the answer, you know, and it sort of depends on everything. But you're going to have more brown than you have green as you do this. What we hope for is more fungal activity to move water. I can't tell this. I don't know if we have mycorrhizal fungus. I don't know if we're moving the water through fungus. A third way to move it, you know, instead of gravity and capillary. So I don't know. We do see that we're decomposing underneath. We do see that our green nutrients are decomposing. So we know that the fungus is working, the bacteria is working. Carbon sequestration, again, logically, yes, we're sequestering carbon. How much? I don't know. You know, we have to be because we're burying wood. More water and nutrients. And did I just drop off? Oh. What I like the most is we don't water as much. You know, so little or no watering. That first year, like I said, that big hill, we watered 4 times that year. And everything else was being watered a couple times a week. How do you take care of this? So you're not going to dig it up, you're not going to till it, you're not going to, but what you want to do is you want to minimize what's happening to it. We want to let that bacteria and fungus and, you know, something, oh, I didn't bring the book. We want these PEDs in the soil, you know, these structures in the soil. We want these structures in the soil to stay undisturbed. So we really want to let it be, sit still. We always want cover on it. We don't want bare dirt. Now, I say this, and if you went out to the demo garden right now, you'd see some bare dirt. The wind blows, you know, so you try to not have bare dirt. You're going to rotate your crops just like you're doing in your garden. You know, you're already rotating anyway. The living root, I like this nitrogen savings account, and it's something that I haven't done in the past. I've been trying to do it for a couple years now. One problem that I have with the second crop or the third crop is you have to really take care of it. You can't just say, I'm going to go out and scatter some alfalfa seeds, and I will have alfalfa that will then winter kill, and that's my nice, wonderful start for the next year. No, you have to go out and water it, and you have to tend it like any other crop. So that's where I fall down with the cover crop. I think they're a great idea. It makes perfect sense when you think about it. But when you are cleaning your garden, chop and drop. Leave those roots in. You know, I showed that picture of roots in the soil. That's what we want. We want more and more and more roots in the soil, and let those roots decompose in the soil. That's a pathway for water in, air in. Remember, it needs air and water. Your soil is half solid, a quarter water, a quarter air. So you want that air in, water in. Steady state, ideally. So we really want to say, as much as we're taking out, you know, so I'm harvesting these tomatoes, I'm harvesting these peppers, these pumpkins, these potatoes, I'm then bringing in that much compost or manure, but that compost and manure I'm laying on top. Now, I just have been reading another guy who's saying, yeah, that laying on top is real nice, but he's saying till in the top 2 inches. Leave the root below until the top 2 inches just so it's easier to work. Don't till deep. You're just really just mixing your compost or whatever in. I think we'll probably try that. I can see the logic of it, but don't go deep and kill all the roots and kill all the structure. This past year, what we did, and this is sort of a side topic since we're talking water. This past year, we watered from buckets. So one problem that I have watering is you stand out there with the hose and you sing happy birthday 2 times, and then you move to the next plant and you sing happy birthday 2 times. And it's just, I know I'm not watering correctly. I know I'm giving too much here, too little there, what's needed. So we watered from buckets. So you can take a 5-gallon bucket and drill holes, and if anyone wants to talk about the hole size, we'll talk about the hole size. Drill holes in the bottom, and you fill the bucket, and you move on to the next bucket and fill the bucket. This gives us sort of a maintenance watering. Now, this isn't everything you need. So this is, boy, it's not raining much. I'm going to give, we only had a 1/4 inch this week. I'm going to go out and fill those buckets. If you're going to water just with this, you need more buckets. You need to be closer. But I do a little math. Everybody knows the gallon's 231 cubic inches. What else would it be? And then you can just lay that over because you want that inch of water. So a 5-gallon bucket gives an inch over 8 square feet. The thing is, that's wrong. The water doesn't go out and then down. The water goes down sort of in a cone. And so you'll see that, boy, it really watered for this 3 feet, not for this 4 feet, so or each side of the bucket. So you want to be aware of the water. Yeah, it's this much math, but think of how it goes down. And here's one where 1 foot over and 1 foot down, I can still make balls with the soil. So it's moist enough for me to compress it into balls, 1 foot over and 1 foot down. But if you go farther, if you go 3 feet over and 1 foot down, it's not there. So this is what you want. I don't want it to be a soggy mud mess, but I want it to be just damp enough that I can make a ball. And they'll have, you can also squeeze it and see if you can make a string, a Play-Doh string. That's it. I recommend Hügelkultur. I don't think it's the only answer, but it is an answer to keep in your toolkit. Like I said, once you put it in, you don't have to do anything. It's just there. It slowly degrades. That large mound out at Demo Garden started at 3 feet high. We're probably 1.5 feet high now, as everything's settled in. So you just, you're going to stick it in, you're going to let it go. It's going to last 20 or 40 years. It's going to last long enough that we don't care. And then someone else will do something more. But think about not disturbing the soil. I'm saying, man, dig it all up and do this. Dig it all up once. And if your soil's, if you're not in town and you have good soil, if you're out in the country and soil's been building up for 100 years, you probably don't need this, although you might need it for the watering. But always, when you're disturbing the soil, do it consciously, because you're setting it back, and this is my own opinion, you're setting it back a year. Every time you dig it up, you're setting it back a year, because it has to recreate all that structure underneath there. And there is 100 great books. Kathleen Woda, Iowa's Amazing Land or something like that, I forget. I just finished that one, and she talks about this stuff, and that's got me all psyched for soil. And the trouble is you're psyched for soil, so you want to go out and start digging, which is just what you don't want to do. There are a lot of references. The couple that I have used the most, or these ones on the bottom, this teeming with microbes is sort of what lit the fire in me. So this is talking about working with the microbes in the soil instead. That is great. I'm a root guy. So this root development, one thing I noticed was every site I read, when they talk about roots, they reference this book from 1928, 27. And I think everybody's referencing this book. So I finally went out and got the book, and it is wonderful. It gives you pictures. These guys spend a summer, imagine being his assistant, assistants. They spend a summer planting seeds and then slowly digging away the dirt. So I think that would have been a fascinating job. I will do that. If someone's hiring, yep. But this sort of gives you an idea of, what do I need for this plant? How deep is that? Oh boy, that's 2 feet deep. I really don't need to dig 5 feet deep. Or I'm growing my squash and it's going to have roots that are 13 feet wide. Well, I better think of that. So it makes you think more, what's going on underneath. So both of these are talking about what's going on underneath. But you guys pick any 10 books, go in the library here, they're all good. That's all I have. Thanks.
We'll take a little break, and you can write out your questions, and John will graciously answer them. Thank you, John.
Thanks. The first question is one that I should have answered already, because it's asked every time, and it's a logical question. Is there a wood you shouldn't use? And the answer is walnut. I have read a couple sites that say also don't do pines because of the tannin, but walnut is the one that I'd say definitely don't use. The pine, I'm not sure. So I'm a bit confused about the watering. You said you watered daily at the demo plot, but later you said you watered the hill 4 times. Could you clarify this? No, I want it to be a little confusing. It's more fun that I'm making sure that you're awake and listening. So that first year, what we did was the demo garden itself, so all the other beds in the demo garden, we watered every other day, I think. So we water every other day. The hill, the Hügelkultur berm, and I'll call it the hill too, the hill, we watered 4 times that summer. So we watered it much less than the other. Now, the other beds, remember, they really only had 9 inches of topsoil to work with, and then they hit that clay. So there wasn't a lot of storage underneath them. Is Hügelkultur, this is a good question, a structure, a bed, a method, fertilizer, or name of a company? It's actually a German phrase. Hill planting is probably what that would translate to. So Sepp Holzer in Austria started the name. The practice has been going on for centuries, but the name started in Austria, and so it's an approach. And it falls under the umbrella of permaculture, and you guys have all read about permaculture. So permaculture is this idea of long periods of observation, short periods of action. So you want to think about what you're doing for, when you move into a new house, you watch the yard for a year, and then you start moving and changing and whatever. When you come to a new place, you watch it for a while, and then you move. One picture that I didn't include, because as we were watching the demo garden, we had a cougar or something walk through that first winter, a cat with a foot too big. So as you watch, you never know what you're going to see. So Hügelkultur is an approach, and it's just this idea of burying the wood. And another question that I had just walking around is, does it have to be old wood, or can you put young wood? Young wood is fine, and with derecho, there's actually a lot of people that just buried that tree that fell. They left it there and buried it. So you can do that. And I think I have in here, can I do it over a stump? Actually, that's a wonderful thing to do over a stump. You've got that stump there, put your green on top, and I'll say manure, I'll say green. most people don't have a source of manure. You know, you don't happen to have someone with cows, or you don't happen to have, you know, horses. You don't ever want to use domesticated pets. You know, you don't want dog poop. You want cow poop. You know, so most people don't have a source of manure, a free source of manure. Use your grass clippings. You know, use your trimmings from the bushes. Use the weeds from the garden. How fast does nitrate move with the water over time? I don't know. Now, and I actually think this is a great question, because what I read is when it moves, it's gone. You know, so if the nitrate's sitting there free because of the charge on it, it's not binding with the clay particles or anything else, I believe, and again, anyone correct me if they're a real chemist in here, I believe, or engineer, I believe that once that water takes it, it's going to take it down to where the water stops flowing. So is that a field tile? Is that the clay layer? Is that, so it's going to take that down, it's going to move it down. So when it moves quickly, it moves as fast as water's moving through the soil. How long can it sit there before it moves? I just don't know. I don't know enough chemistry, I think that would be. Growing trees on it. And this is actually something that in the literature they say specifically, don't do it. Don't plant a tree on the bed, plant a tree next to the bed. On the bed, the roots aren't going to, it's too loose for the roots, and when you get that next big wind, it's going to fall over. So they say put it next to it so that it has the advantage of the nutrients in the water. And if it's a tall one, you know, they talk about these tall ones being windbreaks too. So if you plant your 3-foot tree next to an 8-foot Hügelkultur, that tree is in a wonderful sweet spot. But don't put it on, and that's what all the literature says, it's going to fall over. No results. How would I improve results? Is that someone who has done this and no results?
That was my question. I was just wondering, like, per se, you see no results.
If you see no results, yeah. And that's actually a very good question. So the question is, how do we improve it if we don't see results? I would say, in general, you're not going to see a lot of results the first year. So in general, stuff is still settling, stuff is still, and remember, when you dig it up, you set the soil back a year. So we dug it up, we put in a lot of stuff, and the idea is we put in so much stuff that it offset that setback. And that's probably true. Again, I don't know enough chemistry to say for sure. But to improve results once it's there, every fall, so first of all, leave the live root in, you know, chop off your tomato plant, or actually what we did out at the demo garden this year is we just mowed them. You know, when you're done, just mow over everything and leave it right there. One way to do it. On top of that, then, put compost. You guys all know we have wonderful compost out at the landfill, $10 a truckload, my little truckload. So you can get wonderful compost here. You can make your own compost. I do. You know, a lot of people are composting. You can put, so add that stuff on the top layer. Now, again, and I was just talking with Larry there, there is a whole approach that when you don't want to disturb the soil underneath, like on a hugel bed, and you've laid your manure or compost on top, fork it. Don't turn it, just aerate it. So just, you know, just this much, fork it. And there's a broad fork that I would love to have. If anyone's looking for a Christmas gift, yeah. So you would just fork through your garden to aerate it, and that then gives space for that nutrients and water and air to go on down in. So if I didn't see results the first year, I wouldn't panic. I'd say, well, yeah, I'll fork it, exactly. You know, add the nutrients, fork it, but be respectful. What's a good source for manure in Iowa City? There isn't really. You know, you can buy manure. That seems counterintuitive to me. You know, you ask around. So you talk to different people. Do you know anyone? you don't have to use manure. So any green, and the easiest is grass clippings or weeds. I've had a lot of people say, you know, I don't compost the weeds because of the weed seeds, or I don't leave them on the ground because of the weed seed. I do. And then when the next weed grows, I pick it and use it also. You know, ideally, I'm picking the next one before it seeds. You know, so you just want to stay ahead. So I think that's a different philosophy. You know, do you compost and use the weed, or do you throw it? You know, even when everyone was picking garlic mustard, they said, don't compost the garlic mustard. I did. But I'm composting, you know, we're composting at 135, 140. You know, the city's composting at 180. It is enough to kill that stuff. So if you get up in the 130s and 140s for your compost, you're killing that seed. But remember, of course, when you measure your compost, you're measuring the middle. The edges aren't that, so that's why you want to keep turning it so that it will.
When using your grass clipping,
Yeah.
I find one of the biggest mistakes a person can make is cutting the grass, bagging it all up, and then putting a layer of grass on their compost. That's a no-no.
And they've done two mistakes. So first of all, don't bag your grass. Let it be on your grass. You know, mow often enough that you don't have to bag it. But if you are saying, I'm going to go out and harvest some grass for my compost or for my hugel bed, if I'm going to harvest grass, then I'm bagging it. But you want to think grass that's real thick, and you guys have all seen this, it gets a soggy mess. It becomes anaerobic. You can smell it. There's a lot of bad stuff going on in there. Of course, it's not bad, but it's not the stuff you want. So that big, thick mat of grass is not what you want. When I add grass in, I add about this much, or I mix it a little so that it's not just going to be a mat. So be aware of what grass is. Does Hügelkultur have a role in establishing pocket prairies or pollinator gardens? There was another one, I think, does it have to be vegetables or can it be flowers? Oh, it's the next one. Ecumenical towers is a flower bed. So, and I like to think of that as a pocket prairie. You know, that's sort of our mind is a pocket prairie. The only negative, so the cautionary to that is a lot of native seeds, and this is, again, counterintuitive, don't want worked soil. You know, a lot of native seeds sort of want to work for it. You know, so they want a harder soil, something that isn't real loosened. What's too much, what's too little? I don't know. This is something we're still playing with, but you want to be aware you really don't want to, if you're planting your pocket prairie, you don't want to dig it too much. Again, how much is too much? And if you're, you know, in a city house and you have an inch of topsoil and the rest is clay, you probably want to dig it. Although the native plants will work through that clay. So I gave a non-answer to that one. Can you build this over a stump? Yes. What kind of manure is best? Chicken, cow, or pig? It depends on what you're serving as a side dish. Every once in a while it comes out. There's this inner dialogue going all the time. For me, when I started using manure, I used horse because it was the most readily available to me. I was cleaning out horse stalls at the time. So I had it right there. I could just take some home in my pocket and save it for later. So horse was what I started with. I've been taught by many people that cows with their two stomachs, actually what comes out has digested a little more and you won't have the weed seed in it. Now, we have a wonderful source of manure that we get for the demo garden where it's, it's a year old. So with any manure, it should be at least 6 months from the butt to the seed. So there should be at least 6 months before that seed is in this manure, at least. But what that means is if you get manure that is from this fall, if your farmer friend will pile it up and let it sit through the winter, you're good. with planting that. And actually, that's what we do, is we get our manure in the fall and we let it sit. And that manure, so for us, it's actually longer, that then goes on our beds the following fall. So we compost it for a year, and then we put it on the bed. And then we reload our compost with the manure. So we go at least a year, and then it's through the winter, so ours probably has 18 months. But they say at least 6 months from the animal to the seed. What kind, where can I find manure? So the city compost, I'm a big fan. And I went out and took the compost tour. You guys should go out and take the landfill tour. It's actually a very nice tour to see what's going on behind the scenes. And then you get to go out and feel the compost and look at all the machinery. My dream job, if I ever get to do the Make-A-Wish, if I have terminal cancer or something and I get to do Make-A-Wish, I'm going to run the grinder out there at the dump. Wouldn't that be fun to run that giant grinder? That's my Make-A-Wish. But you get to tour out there and see that, see their compost facilities, and they're serious about this. They're really doing it, and they're churning out thousands of tons every year, which is amazing. They're not adding manure or anything like that. It's just, it's kitchen scraps, it's leaves, it's branches, it's, so it's all small stuff, and then they run it through a trommel to take out anything big. So the compost is very good. It used to be free, and now it's $20 a ton. If you go to the East Side Recycling, you can buy a bucket of it. And does anyone know I think it's a couple dollars? 50 cents a bucket? Yeah. So you can take a bucket or 2 or 3, fill your trunk with buckets, and $5, So yeah, you can get that compost real nicely. Collaboration on small or large projects. How would you like for us? How would I like you guys to spread the word? I think this is wonderful dinner conversation. That's how I would spread it. Whenever you're having dinner with someone else, I would start with the manure, of course. And that's sort of a first course, isn't it? But I think we want to raise awareness to the no-till. So it doesn't have to be Hügelkultur. I think we want to raise awareness to keeping the roots in the ground, keeping something growing, and no-till. Everything we read, and I don't have any of the books here, they're all aimed at farms. 1,000 acres, 10,000 acres, all this stuff, and terracing, and none of us are that, or I assume none of us are that. So we're talking about our little 9x9 plot in the backyard. But still, I think to practice that on your little spot, I think that it's sort of that groundswell thing to practice in your own yard. Oh, let me try this. Does this really work? Because then I can spread the word that, hey, this does work. Now, is what I do transferable to my cousin's farm outside of Boone? No. It's just the scale is so different, the topography is so different, the end goal is so different. So I don't know that I could say, hey, Mr. Farmer, you want to do this, but I can say these theories of no-till and these theories of roots in the ground and cover crop, I think that applies to everybody. Was there more? Is that just perfect? That's it.